Hello and welcome to A Night at the Movies. I'm your host, CJ Grace. Over the last 5 years, I've taken part in countless Night at the Movies reviews. From Psych to Shazam, Mary Poppins to Bird Box, I've seen the triumphs and defeats, the epic highs and lows of working with St. Rose Television. But for my last production here at the college, we're going to change things up a bit. Today, I'm here to present you my top 5 St. Rose Comm Department movies of all time. So, just to be clear, these aren't movies made by or featuring the department or any of its alumni. There's only so many times I could put Fever Pitch on the same list. Instead, we're going to be talking about movies that are featured as assignments across a number of different classes here in the St. Rose Communications Department as a little walkthrough of my history in the program. These are just a taste of some of the movies you could get to watch, review, and learn from while you're here. Before we get going, I'd just like to offer an honorable mention to Kevin Smith's Clerks, Jim Sharman's The Rocky Horror Picture Show, and Brian De Palma's Phantom of the Paradise. They're 3 of my favorite movies of all time, and thanks to the comm department, I got to study all of them in depth. Now, let's cut to the chase. First off, from the film noir genres class, we've got the original 1962 version of Cape Fear. This came from the later stages of the class and of the movement itself, catching the very end of the semester. It models itself on the best of Alfred Hitchcock, even utilizing one of its frequent collaborators as its composer, and breaks the formula of the detective drama just enough to stand out among other movies from the class like Double Indemnity or The Postman Always Rings Twice. Gregory Peck holds up the good guy image you might have been familiar with, but shows a welcome sense of justice in his heated exchanges with Robert Mitchum. I reviewed the 1991 Martin Scorsese remake starring Robert De Niro as part of my final for the class, and while that's undoubtedly good in its own right, the original is a subtler, more quietly intense affair that stands head and shoulders above its follow-up. Next up, from Film Art, is the 1960 Billy Wilder movie The Apartment, starring Jack Lemmon as a corporate stooge who slowly rises the ranks of his soul-crushing office job by lending out his apartment to his co-workers. This starts out masquerading as a comedy, but its slow descent into darkness tugs at the heartstrings like almost no other movie I've ever seen. Shirley MacLaine's starring turn as perpetual victim of love Fran Kubelik is a soul-crushing, genuine portrayal that's impossible not to root for, and her chemistry with Lemmon ensures that Billy Wilder's humorous heart remains behind that. This movie was the first time I remember a class actually going silent at a scene, and if you need a good movie night while you're feeling down, I can't recommend it enough. Bouncing over to film history, we've got Park Chan-wook's Old Boy, a 2003 classic about a man who spent the last 15 years being tortured, only to find that that was just the beginning of his problems. This one was part of a chapter on East Asian cinema, part of the class's focus on teaching the entirety of cinema and not just English language movies. I can still remember being up early the morning the paper was due, watching and re-watching one specific fight scene, because I couldn't understand how Park got the action to look and feel exactly like a Mortal Kombat or a Street Fighter type side-scroller. This isn't for the faint of heart, and even from the very beginning it seeks to unsettle the viewer. But if you can take it, this movie is an absolute masterpiece that astonishes you as much as it does horrify. Moving on to another one from film history, we've got the Coen brothers classic, Fargo. While you might expect a heist movie to be slicker, more elegant, and pristine, like the Ocean's franchise, this Midwestern ensemble piece redefines the word schlubby with every character. While the Coen brothers' other movies, like The Big Lebowski or Hail Caesar, rely on over-the-top personalities to create the intrigue in their stories, it's the fact that almost everyone in this movie is so aggressively average that makes it incredible. William H. Macy's Jerry Lundegaard is just an everyday car salesman with a wife and a kid, and Frances McDormand's Marge Gunderson doesn't seem to be much more than a very pregnant cop. But when normal people get up to abnormal things, magic happens. I'd like to thank my friend and a frequent guest on this program, Lincoln Murphy, for introducing me to the Coens as a freshman. He couldn't be here this semester, but he's the first friend I made at this school, and we're all lucky and thankful for his time in St. Rose Television. Wrapping it up with my second genres class, superhero movies, is last year's epic from the Daniels, Everything Everywhere All at Once. One of my best friends is an absolute A24 hound. I heard about this from her, but it wasn't until I actually got it assigned that I sat down and watched it. I can't possibly be more thankful that I was forced to sit down and go through it. This movie lives up to its title in every possible way, with its runtime containing no less than a martial arts movie, a family drama, a multiversal science fiction story, and the last Pixar follow-up you'd ever expect. Stephanie Sue absolutely commands every scene she's in, and Michelle Yeoh's Oscar win is beyond well-deserved. This is, by far, the most action-packed, exciting, thought-provoking, and well-made movie I've ever been lucky enough to write about, and I can't recommend it nearly enough. So, there you have it. 5 years at St. Rose, 5 years to sum it up. It doesn't nearly cover everything. I've been in St. Rose television since my second week on campus, and one set of reviews can only do so much. But that's the thing about this program. There's nothing you can do to summarize it. From September of 2018 to now, I've worked in every possible position, from camera all the way up to talent, written my own series, featured in a pilot that premiered down at the historic Madison Theater, and worked my way through the e-board. I've made plenty of friends, said goodbye to just as many, and saw this club go from almost 30 members to 5. It's been a long time, but it's been a good one. I'd like to thank the club for my time here and all the teachers I've been lucky enough to learn under, particularly Professor Jin Kim, who's responsible for all but one of the movies on this list. And I'd like to leave you with a quote paraphrased from one of my favorite directors, the great Kevin Smith. I used to say this place would be great if it weren't for all the fucking people. But now I know that it's great because of the people. For the last time, I'm your host, CJ Grace, and this has been A Night at the Movies.